The next question came from East Barnet School, and is a question for Mandy Smith. Mandy, do you have any advice for people in terms of starting out a career in the automotive industry?
Well, thank you, East Barnet. Good question. So I guess my general advice in terms of starting a career in anything is, firstly, if you've got a path that's in front of you and you're really clear and you know what you want to do, then stick at it and work hard at it. Because I think sometimes you get lots of advice of, well, there's lots of people wanting to do that job, or it's not a real job. But if you've got a passion for it, I would say go for it and don't, hold yourself back in terms of what you can and can't do. I think if you're not sure what you want to do, then don't worry about it. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to think we've got to have some amazing job set out just for us. But actually, many of us start off not having a clue what we're going to do and, start off thinking we're going to be one thing and end up being another. So I would say whilst at school, if you're not sure, try and think about the things that you enjoy, that you get the most pleasure out of, because they tend to be the things that we're good at. And then I think when you start to then look for a career, speak to people who might be in that industry, research the companies, go and talk to people, because it's through talking to people that you actually get to find out what it's really like. And I think that's the case for automotive. If you're interested in cars or engineering, by all means, explore those avenues. But I would say the industry is much broader than that, and there are lots of different roles within it. So, if I think of my situation in HR, that usually comes with doing some sort of a HR qualification at some point. But that's often not your starting point. It's usually working out you like working with people, that you're perhaps interested in psychology or how people tick and think and wanting to get into that kind of space. So often it starts in a very different space, and then through work experience, you kind of find your way. So I would say, keep your mind open, speak to people, research, find out, enjoy your work experience as well, and just find opportunities to go and test things, go and try different jobs to find the things that really work for you. So that would be my advice.
Thanks, Mandy. Great advice. I think I can certainly relate to that. Certainly didn't have clarity at a younger age what career I wanted to go into. So yeah, makes perfect sense. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is from King Edward VII School, and it's a question for Suzanne. Suzanne, what was your most trying moment in your current role, and how did you tackle it?
Yeah, thank you. Nice to see I got a question from the school. I went to King Edward VI School, so nice to, yeah, I feel like we're brothers in arms already. I've recently started a new job at Volvo, so I'm 8 weeks in. So luckily there haven't been any, super trying moments already so far. But the one that I think is probably relevant to the kind of situation that we find ourselves in at the moment is trying to meet a new team. And to the ladies that were talking about being prepared and making a first impression, how do you do that when it's all virtual, basically? And so I think probably the biggest hurdle I've had is, how do I meet a team, build a relationship with a team, kind of find out how to work with and trust and support the people that I've got to work with every day, when actually I just see them on video mainly. I've seen a few people face to face, but by no means all of them. And so that's been really tricky. And one of the things that, I've been using all the technology. So I've been using Zoom. We've been using Teams chat, which is a really nice way to do the stuff that's not work. So at a more personal level, how do you kind of find out what people's dogs are called and talk to them about, how they're coping with their supermarket delivery and all of that kind of good stuff alongside the kind of the day job, and trying to find that balance between the socializing you might get when you're having coffee or having lunch in the office, when you're sitting in your spare room on a video call all day, has been probably quite tough. And actually it's been really nice to learn about my colleagues by asking them what they do with their teams in the same situation. So actually picking up tips from them, because they've been working that way for months now, has been really helpful, and actually a great icebreaker in terms of meeting them and get some of those conversations started.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for Rebecca, and this one's from Kettlethorpe High School again. Rebecca, how do you measure if you've been successful in attracting more females, enhancing diversity, etc.?
Thanks for that question. I'll say, well, put simply, the best way you can measure success is looking at the data from your company. So seeing how many women are joining the company, not just women, you know, people from other marginalised backgrounds, whether that's BAME backgrounds, LGBTQ plus, people from various abilities, or, you know, neurodiversity. So you can always see at the beginning of the year, you know, where you currently are, you know, how many people you have from marginalised backgrounds, and then, you know, where you are by the end of the year, and measure that, you know, each quarter and each year. But I think we actually need to take it a bit further than that. It's not just about the diversity of the people within the company. It's about the inclusion, the environment that we create for those people, and you make sure that everyone is as comfortable as possible, and, you know, really like bringing their true selves to work. That's where you really want to start measuring success. I think that does get a bit trickier, because it's not necessarily just as obvious as looking at, you know, the number of people within your company. It's looking at other things. So it could be an employee sentiment survey, where you can ask about, you know, how people are feeling about their work environment, you know, what can be improved, etc. You can create safe spaces for people. So at Auto Trader, we have, you know, a BAME network and a women's network. So really you can have like meetings where those people come together and talk about, you know, what they're happy with, what needs to be changed, etc. There's all sorts of things like that. And I think that's where we really need to be focusing on, making sure an environment is as inclusive as possible, as well as diverse.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, Gemma, another question for you, if I may, please. What advice would you give to girls who are feeling discouraged about joining the automotive industry?
Oh, let me come off mute there. So first thing I would say is absolutely don't be. I mean, I've worked in a variety of industries now, not just automotive, and being in an HR role, effectively, our primary purpose is people, and obviously people are present in most, in most, and I would say all businesses. So for me, in terms of, you know, I don't think there's anything about the automotive industry to be discouraged about in terms of an industry to join. It's fantastic. It's evolving. There's so much more to it. I think Mandy said earlier, in terms of, you know, it's a very broad scope in terms of the automotive industry and how you think about it. I mean, obviously, you know, cars are cars and vehicles, and they have obviously mechanics and electronics in them, and there's those elements in terms of the engineering side of the business, in terms of building and fixing, and getting involved in the industry in that perspective. But then there's also the impact on the environment, in terms of what automotive companies are doing to really contribute to a more positive position in terms of our environment, and how sort of electrification is really driving that forward, in terms of supporting climate change and making sure that we are sustainable businesses, in terms of how the products are made and constructed, delivered. There's all sorts of areas of the automotive industry that are just fascinating. And then I think another part to think about is technology as well, because effectively, you know, cars are full and loaded with up-to-date and continuously changing technology. You know, if you think about what's happening on the roads in terms of smart motorways, and the capability of cars now, you know, and it's looking at the automotive industry in a very broad sense as well. Yes, you have got, like we said, that traditional part in terms of, you know, the engineering, and that is evolving, but so many other aspects as well. So I sort of think, you know, as with any industry, I think it's really lift the lid and look into it in terms of, you know, what's it all about? How's it impacting on the world? Can I really buy into what this company is doing, and how this company is progressing and contributing to the world? So I think for me, you know, I don't see it as sort of a traditional industry, if you like. I see it as a very, you know, forward-thinking, fast-paced industry that massively contributes to our society. So yeah, fascinating. I've worked for Volvo now for about a year. So my knowledge of cars prior to joining Volvo was, what colour are they? What do the wheels look like? And that kind of level. So what I've learned in a year has been it has been immense. But I would say, as an industry, in terms of where it's going, it is very exciting. So, you know, absolutely do not be discouraged from thinking about the automotive industry as a career. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think we'd all support you there, Gemma. It really is a very, like you say, exciting and innovative industry that contributes an awful lot in many different aspects across the environment as well. So yeah, I should have said that question as well was from Sheffield Park Academy. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Sheffield Park.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question, another good one from King Edward School again, and this is for Rachel. Rachel, what is your biggest achievement that your mum tells everyone about?
Yeah, very good question. It did take me a few minutes to sort of have a think about this one.
I'm sure there are many.
yeah. That was the problem. I think the biggest achievement that I've had to date in my career is joining Marshall Motor Group and setting up their internal recruitment function from scratch. So before I joined the business, they didn't have such a function in place, and I joined what was a new company and also a completely new industry, so I'd not worked in the automotive sector, and effectively it was actually a new country for me because I'd spent all of my working life in Australia before that. So there was a lot of new things for me at the time, and I suppose there was a lot of moments of self-doubt, and I couldn't believe my luck that I'd been given this opportunity, but just really pleased to say that it's gone very well so far, and hope it continues to. So I think that would be the thing that would be my biggest achievement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question, and this one's for Suzanne, is from Thomas Beckett School. Suzanne, if you had a different career before, what made you change career?
Yeah, so yes, I've had a number of different careers before. So like I said, I've been at Volvo for 8 weeks. Before that, I worked in water utilities, mobile telephones and pay TV. And I would really just echo what Mandy said earlier. I think I was probably the career teacher's worst nightmare because I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I still don't. You know, there are new roles, new jobs, new skills that I learn about every day, and I think, oh, I'd be really good at that. Why don't I try that? And, you know, you can get carried away with all the options, I think, that are available to you. And some of the things that I've done as roles were not even roles when I was at school. They're things that have evolved as technology and businesses and society have changed. So I would totally echo what Mandy said and just sort of, you know, pick something that you enjoy, because they tend to be the things that you're good at, and they tend to be the things that not only can you to work well with, but actually you kind of look excited and you get passionate while you're doing them, and that takes other people along with you and creates a kind of a movement of people wanting to change and wanting to try your ideas out. So I spent a long time working for EE, which is BT, and while I was there, I probably did 10 different roles, everything from project management to marketing to process engineering, and I tried lots of different things, and I think that would probably be my advice. As you get opportunities to work with different people and different skill sets, and you find things interesting, actually once you're in a company, it's quite easy to move around internally and to grow those skill sets. And so I really took advantage of kind of internal mobility, as we call it, at those companies to learn lots of different things, to build a really diverse network. And then when it comes to moving companies or moving industries, which I've also done a few times, you have a whole bank then of transferable skills to take with you. So I really enjoyed water. I'm a chemist by background. That's what I did my degree in. Really interesting learning all about water. But to be honest, you know, it's really old industry, and pipes are not that exciting for me. So when I moved then into mobile telco, which was a really young brand, a really exciting technology that was just getting into everyone's pockets 20 years ago, I had lots of skills to take with me, but actually the thing that I could learn was a whole new industry and how it worked and how they made money and what their impact on society was and what you needed to do well to flourish there. And I think that's what's driven me for all the moves that I've made, is to learn something new and to work with different types of people, but go taking the kind of gift, I guess, with you of something that you've learned somewhere else that new place are looking for. And I think you all will have loads of those skills that you'll start to hone as you do part-time jobs, as you do things at school, as you carry on your studies. And it's really just working out, like, who else would be interested in some of those things that you can do really well and that you enjoy. And I think if you stay true to that, then you won't get bored and you'll have lots of fun along the way.
And Suzanne, you mentioned earlier, obviously being quite new into Volvo and joining at a time when everybody's working kind of virtually, you know, and the efforts that you're making to reach out to people. Are you finding that a lot harder working in this environment than typically it would be? And if so, yeah, how are you making the most of that learning?
Yeah, definitely. I think it really is a lot harder because normally, you know, you would maybe get people that you're working with together and you'd say hello and you'd go for lunch with them, and there'd just be lots of opportunities that's not really work related to just sort of, you know, understand what makes them tick and understand what they might be expecting of you and what you can expect for them. And that's much harder remotely. Video helps, but it's, you know, it's not the only thing. And people get a bit screen blind, don't they, when they've been on camera for a long time. And so I think it is quite a lot harder. But I think one of the things that I've brought with me is kind of knowing how to, you know, check in with people and look out for them and be alert to some of the signals, I guess, that they send off, that they might be struggling or need some more help, or actually they know everything that you're telling them, so just shut up and let them get on with it. And I think, you know, having done some of that before coming into this role really helps. But yeah, it's definitely different, that is for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Rebecca, another question for you, again from Thomas Beckett School. It's about starting jobs again. So, Rebecca, how confident were you when you started your job at Auto Trader?
Oh gosh, one word I guess would be terrified. I wasn't confident at all. I remember actually before Auto Trader, so my career wasn't always in automotive either. So when I first graduated university and had my first internship job, I was absolutely terrified. Didn't know what to expect. Had no idea what work I was going to do, what the people were going to be like, and so on. I actually remember feeling so scared. I didn't even ask where the toilets were. So I went the whole day without going to the loo and had the fullest bladder ever. And I can't get that out of my mind anymore. And I remember, you know, I guess I got over that bit, but then second week into the role, so my first role, sorry, as an intern was in PR. So one of the jobs I had to do was pitch a PR story to some journalists. And one journalist was so awful to me on the phone. I won't repeat everything that he said, but basically told me to get lost in no uncertain terms. And I hung up the phone, promptly started crying, and I was too scared to even pick up the phone again to a journalist for another couple of weeks. So my confidence was very low to begin with. But I think over, you know, time, I worked at a couple of different PR agencies before I joined Auto Trader. Your confidence grows from experience, from, you know, the people that you surround yourself with, and the type of work you do. I think that's just, you know, part of the job. Like everyone kind of, you know, gets there eventually. And then when I started at Auto Trader, that was my first role within the automotive and tech industries. So again, I was absolutely terrified to start. I had no idea what to expect. First of all, I knew zero about cars. You know, I've definitely learned a lot in the last, you know, 18 months or so of being at Auto Trader, but I really didn't know much about cars to begin with. And I was also really scared that I would be walking to a company where, you know, it was filled with men who were lads and petrol heads, and I would have nothing in common with them and we wouldn't get along. You know, I definitely had this preconception of what the automotive industry was going to be like. But thankfully I have been, you know, very pleasantly surprised, and that's really helped with my confidence in this role. The people that I work with are absolutely lovely. Yes, there are petrol heads, but they're the ones that are helping me, you know, on my own kind of car education. And it's worked out really well. But again, I think it just comes down to, you know, building up that experience and surrounding yourself with the right type of people, you know, that will support you and help you.
Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Mandy, another question for you from Trinity. Will there still be jobs for us in 5 years' time, or will everything be automated?
It's a fantastic question. Thank you, Trinity. I guess the answer is yes, there will be jobs in 5 years' time. I'm pretty sure about that. I think in my mind, there is absolutely a place for automation, and there is a lot of work out there that we've been doing for many years that have been very boring, very repetitive. Lots of opportunity for human error in terms of data input and all that kind of thing, that I'm sure many of us are very thankful that things have been automated, and there'll be lots more to come, as we know, and some exciting things. And of course, there's lots of jobs in automation, so there's some jobs for us to begin with. But I think the bit that's for me is really fundamental is you can't replace people working with people. And this lockdown's been very insightful for a lot of people, I think, who were quite thankful for the respite of being able to work from home for a while and not have all the traveling and all the kind of meeting after meeting in different rooms that often many people have to go through. But actually working from home is very isolating. And whilst we are on Zoom, as we've been saying on many of the questions, it's not the same as being with colleagues or with friends and sharing ideas and collaborating. So I think there's a lot missed if we're not together. And I think that people trust people. So if you're selling something, or if you're helping somebody with something, which is pretty much what most businesses do, you want that personal interaction to trust the product. That's not always the case. I know we buy lots on Amazon, but certainly with things like cars, whilst there will be a place for your kazoos that just turn one up at your doorstep, there's still plenty of people out there that want to trust the person that the showroom and the car, and they want to sit in it and they want to smell it and touch it. And so there will be a place for that. And I think that's the same in all industries. There's a place for people to work with people, and I think that will always be the case. And I would say, we've probably moved a little bit away from seeing customer services. In some people's eyes, it's not really one of the best jobs in the world, but actually I think it's a massively fundamental skill set. And any opportunity to get out there and be able to communicate and talk to people is something that you will always use.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you. Gemma, another question for you, please. Again from Thomas Beckett. Now then, what were you like at high school, both from a behaviour and academic perspective, and what change did you make to ensure you were successful?
Oh, okay. Interesting question. So I suppose at high school, I would say I was more interested in the social aspects of school at the time in high school than I was in the academic side of school. I always did what I had to do in terms of getting work done, but I wouldn't say that I did the best I could. I could have done, for me, I feel like I could have done better, and I could have focused more attention on my education. And at the end of the day, I think at the time, I was enjoying myself and, enjoying my company and time with friends. But like I said, I would say, if I was being honest, the balance for me was slightly out. And if I'd known sort of in future what I knew then I would have try to focus more in terms of on my education on the academic side. I think for me, all of the women in my family were all nurses. My mum, my grandmothers, my sister wanted to be a nurse. My aunt was a nurse. So, in my family, women very much were nurses and physiotherapists, and fantastic jobs, absolutely, but all in that sort of profession and that vocation. And for me, I never had that desire to go into that type of profession or the medical profession. So I sort of thought, what do I do? And my dad worked in business, if you like. He ran his own business. So for me, I was always quite interested in, how he operated and the type of work that he did. He worked for a big company. So I think as I got older, I realized that I was definitely more interested in terms of, we would call it that commercial world. So what big companies did and what happened in companies. So for me, as I got older through high school, I think business studies was always something that I knew interested me. I liked all the elements of it, the marketing, the finances, and that was definitely, I could feel I had a natural interest in that area. So I think for me, once I'd realised that, and it probably came quite late for me in high school, once I'd realised that, I definitely started to focus on that area. And it's one area I would say I excelled in at school, whereas the others I didn't excel in. I didn't go to university after high school. I wanted to get a job. That was it. I took the qualifications that I had. I did a GMVQ. Don't know if they're still called GMVQs. I don't think they are. I think they're called something else, but apologies. And I effectively went and found a job in a company, and I was doing administrative support. There you go. I can get my words out now. Working for a recruitment business, and that was fantastic because I got to see how companies hired people, what the credentials were and how that worked, and that was my step into HR effectively. And then since being in HR, I've studied for my CIPD, which is a professional qualification that you can achieve in HR, and I did that whilst I was working. So I didn't necessarily follow that sort of traditional path of going to university, but it was absolutely the right thing for me at the time. But I think on reflection, you know, the change that I made, maybe a little bit too late for me, if I think back, but it was to focus. And like we've said today, find that passion, if you like, and find that area that I was interested in. And then I really focused on that, and that enabled me to progress through to get my first job out in the big wide world. And then, like I said, I've studied sort of since then. So I think, you know, the key takeaway from that is there's lots of opportunities, but absolutely, you know, not leaving things till it's too late is a good piece of advice. And, you know, try and focus on that area that you feel connected with and that you feel passionate about. But looking at everybody's stories and everybody's journeys, you know, there are lots of different options. So I think keep open-minded, but do keep focused, because, you know, you can carry on having fun forever in terms of, you know, being with people, working with people, and getting that social benefit as well of school. But that is very important as well. So do enjoy yourselves. Enjoying yourself,
very important always. Thank you, Gemma. Rebecca, I'm going to come to you for, I think it'll have to be our very last question, given we're running out of time. It's a great question, though, again from Sheffield Park Academy. Has anyone ever told you that you can't do what you want to do? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah, this was a great question. It really got me thinking. I would say in my working career, I haven't been told explicitly that I can't do something. I don't think people are as overt with their discrimination, or that I've experienced anyway. But what I think is actually a bit more problematic than, you know, an individual telling you you can't do something, for me is well, throughout my career, not just the automotive industry, but all the industries that I've worked in, is that I don't see women like me in senior positions. So by that I mean, you know, women of colour, whatever kind of, you know, background that may include. And for me, that really implies the kind of the saying that I can't, you know, do it myself, or, you know, I'm not allowed to do that myself. It's something I absolutely struggle with. I have done throughout the 10 plus years that I've, you know, been in the kind of working environment. It is getting better, I would say. You know, I mean, this panel alone, you can see some absolutely fantastic women in all sorts of positions, and that's great. And I think what we're trying to do, you know, really focus on is get women of colour from all sorts of different backgrounds to, you know, have that kind of same trajectory. So in terms of how I'm dealing with it, it's a case of, you know, I work my socks off to progress, you know, to progress myself. But I also work in various networks. So that's the Women's Network and BAME networks at Auto Trader, to help, you know, kind of bring other people up, you know, around me as well, to find those kind of really aspirational, inspirational women from all sorts of backgrounds, to come in and speak to us. So, you know, we're really kind of extending that reach and making sure that everyone's exposed to those types of women. We've also actually just launched the Diversity Acceleration Programme, which I think is really interesting. I can't talk too much about it now because it's so brand new, so I don't know everything about it. But the idea is that it's really to help people who may have been overlooked in their careers before, or from, you know, these backgrounds that haven't typically got that type of exposure, to really kind of help pull them through the ranks and learn how to do that. I think it's those types of things that are really important, because, you know, for all the students, you know, watching this from all sorts of different backgrounds, hopefully you'll see women kind of who represent you and, you know, how you look and what you stand for, and hopefully we'll just see more of that, you know, in the future.
Absolutely, super important. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm conscious and sorry, we did have a few more questions that we've not managed to get to, but once again, thank you to everybody that put questions forward, and, you know, it goes without saying, thank you to all of our panelists for your answers this afternoon. I think you'll agree it's been a great session. So yeah, thanks to everybody that's been involved.